What's up, everyone? This is Weston with the Travel Trail. Got another video for you today. Nothing crazy today, just talking about my story and kind of what got me into peak bagging, and specifically this 57 ultra prominent peaks list that I'm working on, and just why I love climbing mountains. So hopefully you enjoy it. So I live in Utah, grew up here, lived in Utah most of my life, and um, I had never really obviously in Utah, there's a lot of mountains, especially like central northern Utah. It's pretty well known for its ski destinations, but we've got some great mountains here. And I was always, into outdoorsy things growing up. We would always go down to like Moab and, southern Utah where there's the Red Rock and do these campouts. I was in Boy Scouts, and so mountain biking, canyoneering, just like anything outdoors I was a fan of. But I didn't really climb any mountains, like any big peaks, until I think I was 20. It was in the year 2018, and it was in the summertime, and there's this big mountain that I lived like 20 minutes from all growing up. It's called Mount Timpanogos. It's on this list. In fact, you can see it right out this window right there. It doesn't look as impressive on camera, but yeah, Mount Timpanogos just dominates the Utah Valley skyline. It's a very popular, well-known peak. Everyone who lives in Utah climbs it at some point. Well, maybe not everyone, but it's just kind of a bucket list item if you grow up in Utah Valley. And so I climbed it for the first time in 2018 with a buddy of mine. And, I figured it would be fun. It'd be a good time, hanging out, doing something hard. I've always been down for a fun challenge, especially in the outdoors. But it was just a couple levels above anything I'd ever done. And yeah, I just instantly knew that I needed to do this more. And thankfully, living in Utah, there's a whole lot more options in terms of climbing really cool mountains. So got done with Timpanogos, super fun time. I instantly was researching and figuring out what other mountains I was going to climb, kind of compiling my own list in my head. And a few months later, I climbed Mount Nebo, which is in the same mountain range as Mount Timpanogos. It's a little bit further south. In fact, I wonder if you can see Mount Nebo. So there's Timpanogos. Mount Nebo, you probably can't see it too well. It's down there. It's the highest peak down in that direction. You probably can't see it on camera, but figured I would give it a try, So yeah, Mount Nebo is actually even closer to where I grew up. I went to Mount Nebo Junior High School. Once I found out about, climbing it and actually how intensive a climb it was, especially after doing Timpanogos, I was all for that challenge. So a month later, took some of my family up there. We all climbed it. Even our dog didn't make it to the summit. My dad had to take her down, but again, super fun time, really cool, just a couple notches above anything I had done in the outdoors in terms of, the challenge, the payoff with the views, and just how epic of an experience it was. And I didn't know this at the time, but both of those peaks, Timpanogos and Nebo, they're both the highest peaks in the Wasatch. I knew that, but they're both ultra prominent peaks. At that point, I had no clue what an ultra prominent peak was. I just knew these were two of the biggest, coolest mountains around and wanted to climb them. And I did, and it was a great time. And so after that summer, I climbed a few more peaks around the Wasatch in Utah. Provo Peak, Mount Loafer, Lone Peak, some cool ones. Not ultra prominent peaks, but really cool, really great views, really unique mountains. And I kind of, at that point, I had knew that I found like my passion and my favorite hobby for life. And the next summer, so the next summer, I essentially wasn't able to climb any mountains for most of the summer. I was door knocking, doing summer sales, selling solar panels in California, good old Bakersfield, California. And yeah, I pretty much didn't have time to really do anything in terms of like climbing mountains until summer was almost over. And then after that summer, climbed a few more mountains in the Wasatch. And then I moved out to California for the whole next year, got married, moved out there, and just did the solar thing full time. And then can't remember how I came across it. I think I was listening to like an outdoorsy podcast or something, and this list was mentioned, ultra prominent peaks, and like how there's 57 ultra prominent peaks in the lower 48 states. And I instantly knew, I was like, oh, those sound fun. Like, I want to do those. And so I did more research on the list, and I found out that there's 8 of them in Utah and 9 of them in California, and I was in California at the time, and a bunch in Nevada. I was always driving through Nevada back and forth from Utah. And so I was like, wow, this is perfect. This will be, a pretty big goal to undertake, especially being married and kind of having responsibilities. Like I'm not really just a nomad vagabond. Like I have a job, I have, a wife, soon to have kids. Like it's kind of a big undertaking, but like I said earlier, I'm always down for a challenge. I love a good challenge and a good, really hard goal to work towards. It's going to push me. And yeah, from that point, I saw that a couple of mountains on the list were only like 2 hours away. And so I just kind of started working on it. Me and my wife went and climbed Mount San Antonio. That was the 3rd ultra prominent peak I did after Nebo and Timpanogos. I'll probably refer to it as Timp later. That's kind of what everyone calls it around here. But that was the first ultra that I did with like knowing that it was an ultra prominent peak and like in order to check it off this list. So from that point, ever since, I've kind of it's been one of the main things in my life that I always think about in the back of my head. And since then I've completed 41 of the 57. So I've made some good progress, still got a little ways to go. I'm feeling like it's close. I'll probably finish in the next couple years, but I did save a lot of the really hard ones for the end. And so I'll kind of get into ranking them now and talking about the peaks specifically. And hopefully I didn't bore you too much with a little bit of background of what this list is, kind of how I got into the hobby and the list specifically. I'll just get right into the rankings.